Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go pack go. Ain't showing no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will.
Hello. Welcome to Lombardi's Legends podcast. Wags and I are eager to be here. I think I just took the words out of his mouth. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, and we're not doing the live stream, but we will be releasing this. So if you're watching or listening to this, you're gonna be letting it hit your eardrum sometime Friday evening or Saturday morning, just in time to preview a huge Week 9 matchup. The Packers 6-2 will be welcoming in the NFC North division-leading Detroit Lions at 6-1. And while this will not decide, Dane, who ultimately I think ends up being crowned as the NFC North champion, the Packers need to hold serve here. It's a home game against the current top team in Detroit. If they want to mean business and try to win this division, it all starts this week.
Yeah, I mean, let's just get into this one. This is a true juggernaut matchup, Wags. Looking at it, it's so critical, not only just playing a really strong team in Detroit, but also it's a division rival. I don't want to sound too grand here, but this could determine a lot of things going forward, beating a really good Detroit team right now. And the Packers are getting the Detroit Lions on pretty damn big hot streak. They've won 5 in a row. They put up tons of points the last 4 weeks. So right away, Wags, looking at it, let's talk about it, right? I mean, Jordan Love practiced on Thursday in a limited fashion with the groin injury. But this is a Detroit Lions team that can do damage defensively, can do damage offensively. What sticks out to you first about this Detroit team, and why are they so dangerous?
It's just their offense is on a ridiculous roll right now. And it's maybe you could say in the first couple of weeks of the season got off to a bit of a slower start for what their expectations were. But I've just been catching bits and pieces of their games the last few weeks. Folks, they got down in a couple of those games, and like last week they were down, Dane, I think they were down 14-0 at one point, weren't they? And they just came back and absolutely steamrolled, and I mean steamrolled a team in the Tennessee Titans that is not a super talented team and by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought they've got some guys on the defensive side of the ball, and like it became clear as they were just piling on points offensively in that second quarter that I think Tennessee players looked around and said, we're not going to be able to keep up to this team. So maybe there was a little bit of a mental letdown from Tennessee's side, but that's what this Detroit team can do to you. And we saw it firsthand last year at Lambeau, where they just like lightning speed got up to a huge lead in the first half against the Packers, and there was not a way that the Packers were going to be able to overcome that. So I think the same holds true this year. They've definitely hit their rhythm offensively, and their rhythm offensively is extremely scary. It's another level of what we see around the league, and certainly it's something that the Packers are going to have to do the best they can to contain on the defensive side of football. So, Dane, diving in specifically, I think the scariest thing that stands out to me about the offense is Jared Goff. His efficiency numbers during this run have been out of the roof, but last week they scored 52 points and Jared Goff had to do basically nothing. So that's a nightmare for Jeff Hafley and this defensive staff to go in and try to game plan around this offense, knowing that, yeah, you've got a Detroit quarterback and Jared Goff that's extremely comfortable and has had some success in the system. And you can try to limit his efficiency, but this is still an offense that's capable of putting up 52 points on you, even if he's not a big part of the offensive output. So that's, I think, the starting point, Dane, is a key matchup with Jared Goff. Last year, he got so comfortable in that game against the Packers at Lambeau. In Detroit, I think we were able to flip things a little bit. Rashawn Gary got 3 sacks in that game, a little bit of a homecoming for him. So to me, it starts with the guys up front. But what are some things that they can do realistically to try to disrupt Jared Goff and get him off of his rhythm? It's no easy task, but I truly think, despite everything I said, it starts there if the Packers have any hope of slowing down Jared Goff in this Detroit offense. And it still might be a little bit of a track meet, but we got to limit them so they're not putting up, 40-plus points on the board.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I mean, Goff has been tremendous. He's been good, whether the pressure's been on him. He's been good. If teams blitz him, he's got, I think, a completion percentage is really high, averaging 12 yards a pass when the blitz comes. I mean, he's been really good on that front, Wags. And then can't forget about Montgomery at running back and Gibbs, who's a first-round pick last year running back. You mentioned it. Last week, Goff didn't have to do too much because they've got these talented running backs back there. I mean, think about the receivers and St. Brown, who's really become a superstar in this league, and then Laporta, then his second-year tight end. But Wags, where it all comes down to then is they've got all these really good, talented pieces, but that offensive line has been really good for them, both running the ball and in pass protection. They're in the top quarter, even the top 5 in both pass protection and run blocking win rate. Packers defensively have had a hard time stopping the run, kind of middle of the pack stopping the run. So maybe not a hard time by Packer standards over the last number of years, but certainly not in the top quarter of the league. And then their pass rush win rate has been, frankly, fairly brutal. I think they're 30th out of 32 teams in win rate. So this week, Wags, you said it. How do you get Jared Goff off his mark a little bit? And can the Packers stop the run? And really that means it starts up front. It starts up in the trenches. They've got the talent to do damage with the individual players, but that offensive line has provided them to really be dynamic, both running the ball, passing the ball, making it so how do you stop them, right? You think you try to square in on the run, they can beat you through the air. You try to take away the air, they try to beat you on the ground, and they've had a lot of success doing that. So this is, Wags, the best team the Packers have faced this year, and maybe the best team the Packers will face all year is the Detroit Lions right now this week.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that's a good point. So, just looking at the run game, then David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs are the 2 main guys, and they're having a lot of success, not only between the 20s, but in the red zone running the football. And obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs is more of that breakaway guy. We've seen him get some long runs this year. So it's going to be really critical that the Packers can have some ability to prevent Detroit from going out and averaging 5-6+ yards a carry. They're at 5.1 yards per carry so far on this season, which is, as you said, an extremely efficient mark on the ground. So if they can get that down to like around 4 even, now it doesn't completely take away the play action, but perhaps instead of 2nd and 3, we're giving them even a few more 2nd and 6s, 2nd and 7s. That's going to be, you might not think that makes a big difference in the grand scheme of things. If they're efficiently passing the ball, it doesn't. However, it can make a big difference over a 4-quarter game to keep them behind the sticks a little bit more, because I think the more you force Jared Goff out of the pattern that he's in with his efficiency, and make him throw the ball further downfield. Can he do that successfully? Absolutely. But those are going to be lower percentage plays, and there's more opportunities to potentially turn the ball over when he's got to throw the ball across the middle or further downfield as well. So Dane, it's a twofold. And again, this gets back to that it's not an easy thing to do. We've got to try to limit Jared Goff efficiency, first of all, on first down. And then we've got to win some of those opportunities on the rush defense and try to keep some of the efficiencies that we've seen from Detroit on this young season down as well. So, all right. But that does not
And the offensive key matchups, Dane, I don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown is someone that Jair would have been shadowing this week, but has not practiced all week, does not look like he's going to be ready to play on Sunday. So we've done this before. Last season, we had lots of opportunities. Defense went out, and there were some weeks we balled out. Guys stepped up. I expect Carrington Valentine to start to get some more snaps this week. But when you think about the two-headed monster in the pass attack, and it's not just these two, but it's Laporta and it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the nightmares that they can give defenses because they're running some of those short crossing routes, and you got to account for both guys. And certainly Detroit does a very good job of moving them around and putting them in different positions on the field that really stress what you need to do from the defensive side.
Yeah, and Wags, we haven't even mentioned yet. I was just looking at the weather forecast before we hopped on here. It's going to be 50 and it's going to be raining. So it's a sloppy game potentially at Lambeau Field. We all know how that field can get wet on Sundays and keep me moving. So I don't know if that limits the passing game, but against a team like Detroit that runs the ball so damn well, I don't know, it's almost pick your poison a little bit.
Yeah. In some respects, that could be to the Packers' advantage on the defensive side of the ball, provided that they are able to have the right cleats. We saw that in week 1. That's a different animal down in Brazil, but certainly if you're slipping and sliding all over the place, sometimes that can be to the offense's advantage as well. So I think that's a great call out, Dane. And frankly, I don't mind if it's a little muddy, a little sloppy. November football in the NFC North. That's what I think it's all about. So, okay. Any other offensive key matchups or anything that you want to highlight specifically around any Packer defenders and what we should be looking for in order to try to counter what the Detroit Lions are doing?
Yeah, really just the disruption up front. I think it's always important, but it's critically important this week that we're able to win our one-on-ones up front, especially in the interior. I'll point out Kenny Clark, Carl Brooks, Colby Wooden, who I thought played some really good ball last week, Devontae Wyatt, who's now back from injury, playing at a high level this year. So just really want to see those guys be able to win at the line of scrimmage. You need it every week, but against a team like this, they're going to need to be extra dynamic, I think, there to be winning those and consistently winning those matchups there. If the offensive line for the Detroit Lions is able to get head on head and move things there, and the Packers have to bring another guy into a box or start bringing the blitz against Goff, it could potentially be a long day. So this is the week against a really strong opponent where just really, really need to circle in the trenches this defensive line. Can they get to the quarterback? Can they create enough havoc up front to start to minimize the lanes for the running game so the Packers linebackers can move and get their hat on the ball carrier? So just a really big week for those guys up front. I think they're up to the task, but this one more than any week so far, we're really circling it for them.
All right, let's shift over to the offensive side of the ball. And Dane, your guess is as good as mine, reading the tea leaves, as to whether Jordan Love is going to be playing this week. I will say that in the 2 games that he missed earlier this season, company line was he was limited in practice all week leading up to that game, and that seems to be the company line again so far this week. Now, is that like, are they playing games of, well, we said that last time and then he didn't play, so clearly Jordan Love's not going to be starting? Or are they doing that and then surprise, knowing that they did that last time? That's the company line. Jordan Love is actually playing. Dan, I'll say this, as far as the gamemanship, it doesn't really matter. It does force Detroit to have to prepare for both Malik Willis and Jordan Love either way. And the interesting thing is based on what we've seen on tape from Malik Willis, that is actually a slight factor, I think, in the Packers' favor, because they are very different players and the Packers play differently on the offensive side of the football, depending on who's behind center. So I think Coach LaFleur and this offensive coaching staff has done an amazing job of being able to have an identity on the opposite side of the ball this year that is more heavily centered around the rushing attack. And when Malik
Willis has come into the game, it's obviously even more heavily centered around the rushing attack, but it's because Malik can do things with his legs that frankly Jordan Love either can't or we don't want him to do. And it stresses defenses in different ways. And Jordan Love, obviously, we know the different talents and the things that he can do to stress a defense to complement that rushing attack. So I think either way, Dane, we're going to have a strong game plan this week offensively. And frankly, whether Jordan Love is behind center or not, I expect Packers are going to have to execute a game plan that emphasizes ball control and continues to find ways to have success with that rushing attack so that we can keep this explosive Detroit offense on the sideline as much as possible.
Absolutely. You're spot on. Josh Jacobs has over 600 yards rushing already on the year. Been just a tremendous signing for the Packers and Wags. This is a week where up front, they're going to need to continue to rush that ball. I was a little surprised last week, Chris Brooks getting some carries in place of Emmanuel Wilson, who was also mixed in there, but the line share continues to go to Josh Jacobs, and rightfully so. He's been really, really good with vision, and he's been able to make some plays out of really looked like not much. He's just been really good for the Packers. Wags, up front this week, when we're talking about the injuries, the one that I am circling is Josh Myers, the Packers center, not able to practice so far this week. So there's potential that we see Elton Jenkins shift over. He has been the backup center for the Packers, which then theoretically would open up a scenario where Sean Ryan's playing one guard and first-round pick Jordan Morgan plays the other. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Now, Josh Myers does seem like the kind of veteran player that doesn't need a lot of practice to be able to go. So, it remains to be seen, and we'll find out what Friday looks like for him. But Packers might be doing a little bit of shifting along the offensive line. The good news is Elton Jenkins, who was held out of practice, was back on Thursday. Rasheed Walker, held out of practice, is back on Thursday. So we are seeing some mostly healthy up front, but that center position is something to keep in mind. But you're right, Wags. Keep the Lions' dynamic offense off the field to the best of the ability. And the other thing is really take care of the ball. We've already mentioned it's going to be wet. It's going to be kind of nasty out there. Packers, when they lose the turnover battle, they are not in very good shape like most NFL teams are. They need to win the turnover battle. They need to play a clean game against this Detroit team. Last thing the Packers need to do, whether it's a banged up Jordan Love or a healthy Malik Willis, is to get into third and long scenarios against a team that has some ball hawking players on the back end of the defensive backs for the Lions. So really get into those third and manageable situations and control the clock to the best of their advantage. That's the best scenario for the Packers to come out with a victory on Sunday.
Yeah. I fully agree. And I think, this Detroit defense is predicated on being able to play that attacking style, force teams into making mistakes. Certainly, they are built to complement the explosive offense that they have. Traditionally, they're going to try to get after the quarterback with their pass rush, missing a huge component of that with Aiden Hutchinson now, who went down a couple weeks ago with his season-ending injury, most likely season-ending. I know they're hoping that if they make a deep run into the playoffs, he might be able to come back. So that remains to be seen. But either way, it's not going to be part of this matchup this week. They've got other guys that can get after the quarterback. But this is why it's so critical, Dane, as you said, that offensive game plan is not only executed, but successful in being able to manage time of possession, go down, get points, obviously. But certainly, as you said, we can't give Detroit short fields. We can't give them opportunities with something we haven't even talked about yet, which is an explosive special teams unit to be able to field punts, on a short field. Those are things that are really going to play into their favor and make it that much harder to keep up in this matchup. So, Dane, it might sound like I'm being pessimistic and in this matchup. Detroit's a great team, but we've seen them play some games this year where if things aren't humming, they're not playing with a big lead, make them get gritty, make them get dirty, figuratively and literally in this one. And I really like
the chances that the Packers have if they're able to do that and force the Lions to have to play a possession game into the fourth quarter. That doesn't guarantee that we pull out a victory, but this Packer team is proving on this early season that they're finding ways to win. And I firmly believe that that's something that can pay dividends both this week and down the road. Detroit, they've found ways to win, but they've also been blowing a lot of teams out. It's a great problem to have. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather be blowing teams out. They're clearly playing at a high level, but I don't know that they've proven to me yet that they've had any of those 4-quarter games that they know how to win in those situations. So the Packers are already playing and executing like it's playoff football. I'd love to see some blowouts in future weeks. I don't expect this is a week that's going to happen, but certainly I think if they're able to execute on that, that's going to limit what the Detroit can do and execute and play that attacking style on the defensive side of the ball as well.
Yeah, this is a Packer team that has shown a lot of grit, Wags. I mean, even in the loss to the Minnesota Vikings earlier this season, Packers down 22 and then come storming back and make it a game and battle, right? So this is a Packers team that is gritty. So I agree. If we can drag the Lions into a kind of a punch for punch game on a wet, dark Lambeau field with that time change, I do like our chances. And I think that's what this Packers defense and hell, even the run game is looking to do on Sunday.
I love it. All right, Dane, let's just get right into the X Factor score predictions. We're going for efficiency here today, folks. So, Dane, I'm going to start us off. X Factors, defensive side of football. I'm going with Devontae Wyatt. You highlighted how important that interior pass rush and rush defense is going to be this week. I think Devontae Wyatt was able to knock some rust off. It was great to see him back out on the field last week. And this is a guy that has been having a lot of success. I know he lost some momentum with the injury, but that's a valid excuse in this case. If he can come up with some splash plays and impact plays from his position on the defense this week, all of a sudden, that is what can really enable this defense to start to force Detroit into some punts or some 3rd and long situations. And that's what's going to be required in order for them to have success and to slow down this Detroit offense and make it that aforementioned grinded out 4-quarter game. So for that reason, I'm going with Devontae Wyatt as my defensive X factor this week.
And I'm going to stay with that position group. I'm going Carl Brooks. It could have been a toss-up with a couple of guys in the interior, but we love Carl Brooks' game in this podcast, and I think that he's somebody that is just continuing to ascend, really shown some pass rush acumen in the interior, but also has been sturdy against the run, Wag. So, what more can I say? Devontae Wyatt really coming into his own this season, and Carl Brooks continuing that ascension. We're going to need both of those guys to be playing top-level football to stop the Detroit Lions this week, quite frankly. So I'm going to go with Carl Brooks.
I love it. All right. Offensively, I'm going to take a page out of your playbook. I remember when you first did this and I kind of ridiculed you a little bit, but I'm going on the offensive line. I'm going to actually not do the whole position group. I'm going to boil it down to 2 offensive linemen, Zach Tom and Elton Jenkins. I think for the reason you mentioned, whichever one of them might slide over to center if Josh Myers is unable to go. It's probably Elton Jenkins, but either way, I think it's going to be critical that if these 2 guys can have success and anchor the offensive line and we can win up front and establish some efficiency in the rushing game. And that's going to be what's going to make a difference. Keep this Detroit offense off the field. Don't let this become a situation where we're playing from behind and their pass protection has been stellar all year long. So I don't have a lot of concern about them, despite some of the success Detroit has had up front with their pass rush. Without Aiden Hutchinson, I think the pass protection with the offensive line is in the Packers matchup favor this week. But if we can get some things going on the run game consistently against this Detroit defense, I think those are the 2 guys to really highlight. But as a whole, Dane, it's just, can we limit the penalties with this offensive line? I would like to see this offensive line make it through this week without a single penalty. I know that's seems like it's asking a lot It hasn't happened yet this season, but we just the false starts are just backbreaking sometimes. They've done better in recent weeks cleaning that up, but it's still been a little bit sporadic. Last week that popped up again a few times. So I would like to see, and I know sometimes the officials can get a little happy with the flag, so it's not full control over that. But I'd like to see this as a clean game from the offensive line without any holding penalties or any false start penalties or procedural penalties. And those are the two guys that I'm looking at to anchor success up front. If we can win there, I really, really like our chances against this Detroit team on Sunday.
Terrific. I love that, Wags. I do. I'm going to go with the guy who does a little blocking, does a little receiving, and in as much as we've highlighted the need to run the ball, Packers are also going to have to find some soft spots in this Detroit Lions pass defense. And I'm going to go with Tucker Kraft this week, Wags, because he's going to be in line throwing blocks. He's going to have to be physical at the point of attack. He's also, I think, going to need to, whether it's Willis or Jordan Love going, they're going to be looking for that tight end to maybe move the chains in a couple critical positions in this weather, in this down and distance, in this scenario. So Tucker Kraft's going to be my X factor this week, Wags, because I think the Packers are going to be asking a lot of him, not only blocking, but also in the pass game to try to make some plays. They're going to be looking for that big target, and he's going to have to be physical against this Detroit Lions defense. So Tucker Kraft, for all of those reasons, is going to be my X factor this week.
All right, fantastic. Dane, score predictions. I'm going to, of course, pick the Packers to win, although I think this is going to be a tall task this week. And you could argue that the Packers maybe are overdue for a loss, coming off of a couple of games that, maybe they didn't play their best against a opponent. Texans are a good team, but Jacksonville is a hard place to go and win. They're a desperate team. I get all of the factors going into it, but anytime you come off of 2 game-ending, game-winning field goals, those are coin flip games. That's the definition of that. Packers are 2-0 off of that in consecutive weeks. That said, I think if we can stick to our game plan that we outlined, make this a possession game, make this a 4-quarter game, keep it grinded out, force Detroit into a couple of turnovers. I like Brandon McManus to come in early and often. 3 field goals in this one. Packers defense balls out, keeps Detroit under 30 points for the first time since week 2, and Packers squeeze out a win. McManus gets a game-winning field goal, not as time expires this week, but Packers 23, Lions 20. I think they can eke this one out this week in week 9.
We have very similar thoughts on how this could go if the Packers are going to win the game. I also am taking the Packers 27-26, complete nail biter in Green Bay. The point totals get kind of goofy with this weather. I do expect it to get nasty out there, but McManus as well, Wags, for me, is hitting some field goals. It's going to be critical. Good snaps, good hold, good kicks. I think the offense does enough. The defense stifles the Detroit Lions, get some turnovers. 27-26. Green Bay Packers win this thing, and if they win this game, Wags, they are on the top of the NFC North.
Yep, I love it. All right, so folks, we got nothing else to say. So enjoy this one. Enjoy the weekend. Let's go get a Packer win. As always, be legendary and go Pack, go.
Pack, go.
Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go Pack go. Ain't show with no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go Pack go. Ain't show with no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will